Hello and welcome to the Try Talking Sport podcast, hosted by me, Joanne Murphy. Whether you are an athlete, adventurer, endurance enthusiast, or simply have an interest in sport, you have come to the right place for inspiration, encouragement, motivation, and as always, plenty of entertainment. This is episode 100 of the Try Talking Sport podcast. Wow, what a milestone to achieve. I can't wait to see where the next 100 episodes will take me and who I will have the pleasure and privilege to chat with. There have been so many amazing stories shared through the show since May 2019. If you have been with me since the start, thanks for coming along for the ride. And if you are new to the show, thanks for tuning in today. I hope you enjoy the episodes and be sure to check out some of the shows in the back catalogue. You'd be surprised at what you might learn and enjoy as you browse through all of the episodes. Thanks, of course, as always, to the guests who have been on the show since episode number 1. There have been some great laughs along the way, and I know you will enjoy this episode with Olympian Caitriona Jennings. Be sure to keep an eye on our socials this week as we celebrate our milestone episode, as there will be some great prizes up for grabs. So make sure to follow Try Talking Sport on Facebook and on Instagram. The 2023 season kicked off for me at the weekend as host of the Triathlon Ireland Youth Awards. A fun afternoon was had in Waterford, celebrating and acknowledging the success of many fabulous young athletes who had excelled in triathlon last season. It won't be long until we are fully into the thick of the race season for this year, and I, for one, definitely can't wait to get into the mix and get things underway. Speaking of racing, be sure to check out the event listings on the Try Talking Sport website, and if you are a race director or event organiser and your event is not listed on the site, please pop me an email to trytalkingsport@gmail.com and we'll get your event listed ASAP. Before we get into this week's episode, a shout out to our partners Nuasan. Be sure to check them out on www.nuasan.com and use the code TTS15 to get 15% off a range of their products online. With Valentine's Day just around the corner, they have a host of products for you to give to your favourite athlete on February 14th. Now to this week's episode with Caitriona Jennings. The Donegal native who now lives in Hong Kong represented Ireland in the marathon at the 2012 Olympics. With a passion for sport coursing through her veins from a very young age, with swimming and triathlon her choice of sports during her early years before coming to excel at running, she has amassed a wealth of success in sport. 10 years on from the London Olympics, she has certainly come into her own as a force to be reckoned with over ultra distance running, as one of the best ultramarathon runners in the world. Securing the bronze medal in the IAU 100km World Championship last year, she also added a gold in the 50km European Championship to her name. She completed her 100km race in 7:07:16 and set a new national record for the distance, whilst also setting a new 50-mile record too. She has previously finished on the podium in 3rd place at the Comrades Marathon, the ultimate human race, and hopes to go as well, if not better, at this event in 2023. In June 2021, she won the Anglo-Celtic Plate at Mondello Park with an impressive 7:43:01 in the 100km race. In addition to her ultra running success, Caitriona has also racked up wins and podium finishes at the marathon distance, breaking the tape at the 2022 Great Limerick Run. She also finished 3rd at the Hong Kong Marathon in 2021 and has over the years secured multiple national titles across a range of running distances. By her own self-admission, it took Caitriona a long time to get over her performance in London, where she endured a stress fracture during the race. Despite the injury, it is no doubt her grit, determination and inner drive to succeed that saw her cross the finish line on the day. Her finish time was far from where she had hoped or expected, but it's that steely determination, unwavering focus and commitment to her craft that has seen her take ultra running in her stride and deliver results that 10 years ago she couldn't even have imagined. This is a super episode of the podcast with a shining star that I have no doubt will continue to excel for many years in the sport that she loves. Now go grab a cuppa and enjoy the show. Caitriona Jennings, I am thrilled to have you on the Try Talking Sport podcast. Olympian, champion ultra runner, champion marathon runner, champion across nearly every single distance of the sport of running. I'm in Galway, you're in Hong Kong. What's happening?
I am. Hi Joanne, lovely to be on the podcast. Thanks for inviting me along today. I'm here in Hong Kong. It's Friday evening, so looking forward to the weekend.
What does a runner of your calibre do on a weekend in Hong Kong?
So this Friday, slightly different. We were due to meet friends for dinner, but had to cancel. So usually on a Friday evening, we would go out for dinner, something kind of local, close by home. And then Saturday morning, get up early, get my training in, and again, try and meet up with friends. So this weekend we were um, a group of guys are going camping. I am not a big fan of camping, but I'm going to go and do the hike and get the boat back in the evening so that I can sleep in my own bed on Saturday night. But yeah, weekends usually just revolve around doing different things. At the moment, the weather's a bit cooler in Hong Kong, so it's good for hiking and getting out and about. And yeah, we're just trying to make the most of it.
Would hiking be considered a recovery activity for an ultra distance runner, or would it be considered maybe a little bit of strength training?
Probably recovery, I think, and certainly the speed that we'd be going at. I do actually hike as cross training. I must say, where I live here is very close to. There's a mountain right behind me, and myself and my husband sometimes go out. It's nice to kind of escape the city. As you probably know, Hong Kong. You've seen the pictures. It's a very, very densely populated and a city full of high-rise buildings. So we're fortunate that there's a mountain pretty much almost akin to jungle right behind us, so you can escape the city life pretty easily, and it's nice to do that just to get some headspace.
It's a big difference from the hills of Donegal.
Sure is. It's much more, I guess, in a way it's greener, which is bizarre because clearly Donegal is definitely known for its green, and it's lots of farms and things, but it's almost like kind of, I guess, jungle here, which is weird. I guess if you think about Thailand or some of the neighboring countries, it's similar in Hong Kong. It's just that people kind of focus more in the city than the outside or the parks and things that we have here in Hong Kong. But it has both, which is brilliant for people that are living here.
Yes, for the outdoors, except for the camping.
Yes, definitely.
So you moved to Hong Kong back in 2019, just before COVID.
That's right. My husband actually had an opportunity to move with work, and I moved as well. I changed companies at the time, but stayed in the same industry. I'm lucky. I work in aircraft leasing, and it's obviously people in Ireland will be familiar with it. It's a industry which is quite unique to Ireland, but the great thing about it for me is that it's quite a small network of people, and I was able to just reach out to some contacts and manage to find an opening in Hong Kong as well without having to leave the industry. So I was really pleased with that, and I moved over in July 2019, and we've been here since.
July 2019. God, the world was still spinning at a rate of knots pre-COVID at that stage.
Yeah, it was crazy. Well, actually, Hong Kong was going through an interesting time then because we had the protests. A lot of the Hong Kongers were protesting on the streets against some of the national security laws that China were bringing in. So that was a kind of an interesting time to move here. Anyone that lives here that I tell that I moved in 2019, in July 2019, they say, "Oh dear, you came at the wrong time," because it was the protest for the first 6 months, and then COVID kicked in, and probably around this time 3 years ago, in fact, in January 2020. So it's been an interesting time, but still, I mean, I still love the city. I think it still has a huge vibrancy here and really nice people, and it's a great place to live actually. So even despite the challenges, I think it's been a good few years.
But I guess no matter where you are in the world at this point, there's challenges no matter where we are. So just as long as you enjoy where you are and make the most of it is probably the best thing.
Exactly. Yeah. We just have to make the most of it, as you say.
Caitriona, you are a phenomenal runner. It's just over 10 years from your 2012 Olympics, but you didn't always start out at running. You were a junior triathlete, if my research is correct.
That's right. In fact, swimming was the very first sport that I started in. I remember being like 4 or 5, going to the local swimming club, Swilly Seals in Letterkenny, and just becoming addicted to swimming 3 mornings a week before school, and the usual routine of any kind of young swimmer at the time. But started doing triathlon then. Well, obviously had been doing a lot of running through Letterkenny Athletic Club and the school as well in Loretto Convent. And my dad was kind of fascinated with cycling at the time. It was the era of Sean Kelly and Stephen Roach. So started cycling and then just brought all three sports together and started doing triathlon at around 12 or 13, which in hindsight now was actually quite young, but clearly, wouldn't have been Olympic distance off the bat. It was the shorter distances at Ulster and national level that I was competing in then.
So then where did the switch come into running? Because I think your first marathon, was that in Dublin in 2011? So what were you doing between?
So I think so all the way through my teenage years, I was essentially a triathlete and competed a lot in triathlon, but still competed at swimming and at each of the individual sports as well. I think running was always my favorite, and any triathlon I did, I always remember I was kind of dying to get off the bike so I could get onto the run phase. I was a good enough swimmer. The bike, okay. It was never my favorite for training, and I suppose it speaks volumes when I look back, because of the three disciplines, the bike was always the one where I would like really have to, make an effort to get out on the bike and do the training there. But when I moved to university and kind of probably, I guess I was a bit short on time now. In fairness, I wouldn't have been that short on time, but because running was my favorite of the three, it was the one that I always seemed to just end up doing. And I really loved the running part. So I kind of probably focused more on running. And then when I moved to Dublin to start my first professional job, I joined a running club in Dublin, and that was really, it just went from there. I just ran from then on.
I know you did the mini marathon. You won the mini marathon. I think it was in 2010 you won that, and then you moved into longer distance. The goal for a lot of people is marathon. We'll get onto your ultra running success in a few minutes, but that was a very quick succession into long distance running.
It was. And, I never really thought, I want to be a long distance runner. Like, I did love 5Ks, 10Ks. I loved, all the club races that were on around the country. And back then it was all about different clubs organizing races. Like, it was very different scene. There wasn't so many I know there's a lot of kind of professional race organizers now that organize races throughout the country. But back then each club held a race, and that was their fundraiser for the year. And there was very much a community. I'm not saying it's not a community now, it still is, of course, but you kind of went to support the club, but also to meet people. And you kind of did, it was the same people you met at all the races around the various especially the neighboring clubs and things, and I really enjoyed that. But it was, as I said, it was all like very short 5Ks, 5 miles, 10Ks kind of maximum. And of course, then the cross country season in the winter, which personally I hated, but you did it for the club because there was always a team that you had to show up for.
So you don't like the bike and you don't like cross country running.
No, I hated cross country, yeah. And it's not that I don't like the muck, obviously, it's more that I was just useless at it and I would never perform well. So that just annoyed me. Then when was it? I think, Donegal, the Finn Valley Club in Donegal were hosting the National Half Marathon Championships in 2010. And I thought, you know what? I'll give it a go, because it was, kind of a close enough to home race. And also they had said that the winner would be selected to represent Ireland at the World Half Marathon Championships in Birmingham. So I said, you know what, I'll give this a go. And I ran it, I won it, and I got selected for the Worlds, which was a brilliant achievement for me. And it was my first time representing Ireland at a senior level for running. So it was, fantastic experience, and absolutely loved it. And then shortly after that, Marathon Mission decided that they wanted to set up an organisation that would increase the standard of marathon running in the country and try and get more people qualified for the Olympic Games, because there had kind of been a lull at marathon level probably through particularly the 90s and 2000s. They wanted to kind of, I suppose they identified it as a distance that we could and should be doing better at. And to be fair to them, like, it really was an incredible success, and they did surpass their own expectations as well. But because of my half marathon time, I hadn't run a marathon to qualify, but because of my half marathon time, I was asked if I wanted to join the group, which of course I absolutely embraced with both arms. It was, it's always nice to train with like-minded people and to have that kind of organization and structure around the training and various different races that we would target as a group. We went to the Great North Run, I remember, in Newcastle, I think that was probably in 2011. Yeah, I think it was 2011, and the lead up to the Dublin Marathon in 2011, which I actually unfortunately got injured before, because at the time I was very prone to injury, and like actually looking back I was injured quite a bit, but I still decided to run it because I had focused on it for so long, and I really, I didn't want to miss out. I knew that I could run it without worsening the injury, or at least I decided if I felt anything, I would step off. And I ran it, and I ran 2:42 at the time, and funnily enough, came off the course thinking, wow, I know I can run the standard for London if I get a decent block of training, because I knew the training I had gotten for that time was just like very, very poor, and that gave me a huge lift and a huge amount of confidence. So it was really on that day that I decided, right, I'm going to go for London. I'm going to try and qualify. And I targeted Rotterdam in 2012 then, and got the qualifying time for London. So yes, it was a very short space of time between deciding I was going to try and run the marathon and actually qualify for the Olympics, which, was like a dream come true and absolutely amazing, at the time. And really good experience.
You had a stress fracture at the Olympics.
I actually didn't have a stress fracture before. I got one during the race. I had plantar fasciitis going into the race, a stress fracture during the race, which obviously was probably building, but I didn't have I didn't even have any pain in that, but in the bones before the race. But of course, a stress fracture, as everyone knows, doesn't just happen overnight. It's kind of a culmination of a lot of stress, I guess, on the bone. So yeah, I stepped off at the end of that race with the stress fracture, and went to the medical tent where I met Powell, who had pulled his hamstring in the 100-meter 4x1. At least it was a terrible time, but at least there was misery likes company. Is there some sort of saying like that?
I think it's either I think it's misery likes company or company likes misery, but I think you're right.
That's it. Yeah. Anyway, unfortunately, London didn't go as planned. It was extremely disappointing, and look, it took me a long time to come to terms with that experience, and even to be able to talk about it. It did take a number of years for me to finally realize that actually, yes, it didn't go as planned, but it wasn't the total disaster that I just had it in my head as this absolute disaster that couldn't have been worse. And, at the end of the day, it's sport, and we do it because we love it, and it gives us, like, personally, it has given me so much joy over the years. And obviously you want to do your best when you're representing your country, and particularly at the Olympic Games on that stage, you're kind of hoping for the very best performance that you can. But look, at the end of the day, it didn't happen for me in London, and but I can look back now and realize that it was still I'm still very proud of myself for getting there and for battling through on the day.
And, there's so many people that never make it to the Olympics. Like, at the end of the day, once an Olympian, always an Olympian. And to get to the Olympics is such a huge achievement. And considering as well, I know you'd been running for quite a bit and you'd been in sport for quite a bit, but considering that short period of time from that very first marathon right through to London 2012 was a very short turnaround time.
It's very short, yeah. Yeah, it was a very short time, and even now, I would say if someone was to ask me should they run a marathon in October, April and August of pretty much the same 12-month period, I'd say no way, that's crazy. So, I can say that now because I know, but at the time I was like, oh, of course I'm going to run another marathon and try and qualify. And of course I'll be fine running the Olympics. I think you can kind of get blinkers at the time when you're very focused on something. And particularly because it was my first 3 marathons, I wasn't a seasoned marathon runner who kind of understood the recovery process and knew my body well enough. I wouldn't have been as in tune with my body then at all as I am now. So, it probably was just too much in a very short period of time.
Kind of mentioned it briefly, just that you were picking up a lot of injuries over the course of your running. So you seem to be less injury prone now. So what's changed? Is it nutrition? Is it recovery? Is it the training has changed? What has changed for you that now you seem to not be injured?
I think it's a combination of all of the above, Joanne. I think, firstly, I understand my body much better. I know if I get a niggle that it's a warning sign. Before I used to get a niggle and think, oh well, I'll just keep going and ignore it and hopefully it'll go away. And look, I'm not saying I stop for every niggle. I don't. I still keep training through most of them, but I now understand the difference between like a niggle that's fine and a niggle that you actually definitely need to get, you need to get seen. And I think as well that I am a bit smarter about training. Like I'm not as focused on getting all the sessions in. If I'm really busy in work or if I've got just too many other commitments, I will say, look, I'll reprioritize my week. I won't necessarily cut out the key sessions of the week. I'll always make sure I get my key sessions in, but I will sometimes drop some of the, say, recovery runs or the what I would consider the less important sessions. So I'm just smarter about training. And I think then as well, definitely the nutrition side of things, I've really improved. I guess a couple of things, but I do understand now the need to refuel immediately after training. Even if it's an easy run, you still need to get some nutrition into your muscles just to start that recovery process as quickly as possible. I'm not as concerned about counting calories and trying to cut weight. So I'm happier to eat, I'm happier to eat what I should be eating after runs. And I do prioritize it as well. I think, as I said, if I am busy and short on time, I'll just try and make sure I have something that's really easy and quick to eat before I have to continue doing whatever else. But I won't skip those very key kind of recovery fuel that your body needs after those sessions. So I think that all three of the above kind of have really helped.
Any tasty recovery treats that you can share with our listeners, that your go-to treats?
I'm not very adventurous, but for me, banana, very easy. Chocolate oat milk I love, but I'll only maybe have that after a hard long run or a hard session. And I've also started taking Tailwind recovery drinks, which are low in sugar and high in just the kind of key nutrients that you need. Look, I would always say better to have real food than supplements, but for me, just knowing that that's like really quality ingredients are used to make that Tailwind nutrition, the recovery drink, I'll have that, especially after hard days when it's just easy and quick to get into.
After London, did you take a little bit of a step away from running completely? I know you went down a rowing path. Did you let go of the running completely, or did you keep a little bit of it up? I know your sister is an Olympian as well, Sinead, in rowing, and so a very sporty family. How was it after London, to pick yourself back up and kind of say, okay, what am I going to do now?
So London, I came home from London in a boot. I had a stress fracture in my left foot and, realized that I was going to have to, just all you can do with stress fractures is wait, I guess, and, try and eat properly and get the right nutrients in. But as for training, I was, I wasn't going to be able to run for a while. I was on the bike a bit, just trying to stay fit once I could. And then,
my God, you must have been desperate if you went on the bike.
Oh, I was so desperate. I was just taking the boot off and, going on the bike. I shouldn't have been doing it, of course, but
No, but you don't like the bike. I meant in the
Oh no, I hate the bike.
Like the bike. You were desperate for exercise.
And to make it worse, I was in the gym on the bike. I was in the stationary bike, which is even worse than being out on the road. Of course I was addicted to the hormones and whatnot, but the
endorphins.
Exactly. So yes, then I got back running and I was so keen to just I was ready to absolutely dominate running to as retribution for my awful London experience, and I went into it with just so much gusto. I mean, I wish I could whisper in my ear now, 10 years later, saying, please hold back, what are you doing? But anyway, needless to say, I picked up a stress fracture in the other foot, the healthy foot, almost immediately, within a few weeks. And actually it was crazy in a way, because I remember getting the pain thinking, God, this is, and you always know with stress fractures because you kind of get this night pain. And I mean, I knew in my heart and soul it was a stress fracture, but I was saying it couldn't possibly be because I've only been back running for maybe 6 weeks at the most, and I was taking it easier. So I thought, I didn't think it was possible, but anyway, it was another stress fracture. And I went to the doctor who was helping me in Trinity at the time, and I mean, he was just like, you actually just need to give your body a rest. It's not going to, this is not good for it. You need to recover. You're never going to get anywhere if you keep doing this. This is like a bad cycle. So I kind of sat back and said, well, what can I do? Because I can't not do anything. And my sister, as you mentioned, was rowing at the time. She was actually making a comeback, trying to qualify for Rio. She'd been trying to qualify for Olympics for probably, I mean, gosh, at least 10 years, because she won the World Championships in the lightweight single scull in 2001. And that event isn't an Olympics event, but the lightweight double scull is. So she went through a number of different partners, and they all had varying degrees of success, to be fair, but just never actually got that Olympic qualifying spot. So she was making a comeback. So my dream was that I would get to Rio with her in the boat as a lightweight, as a lightweight double. And weight lifting or weight training is actually a really important core part of the rowing program, which also increases bone density. So I thought, oh, well, this is perfect. I'll be doing weightlifting for the training anyway. I'll be increasing my bone density, and I'll give it a go and see if we could make this amazing dream come true of Sinead qualifying and me being in the boat with her. I started rowing in 2012. Well, no, it was probably early 2013. With the goal of getting to Rio. So I had like fairly lofty expectations as a novice rower.
Wow, that's fairly incredible.
Yeah. Now, in fairness, I was decent. I was good on the erg. I made it onto the Irish squad. I moved down to Cork to train in the National Rowing Centre with the high performance unit there. And like, it was going okay, but look, at the end of the day, I didn't love rowing. I was doing it with one goal in mind, and that was my only motivation. And like, that's never really the right attitude for anything in life. I suppose you have to enjoy the journey as well as the destination, and the journey has to be worthwhile for you to actually, for the whole thing to be worthwhile. So it was probably, I think it was actually in 2015, or was it 2014? No, it would have been. Yeah, it was probably there for maybe 9 months or so. So it was probably 2014. And I just called it. I thought, I'm not enjoying this. It's not like I don't get the same enjoyment out of this. I remember actually one day, in fact, it was before I moved to Cork, so it was early enough in the process of rowing. But I was out in Blessington rowing on a Saturday morning, and for anyone that rows in Blessington, you row up the reservoir and you come back and you turn at the bridge. And anyway, I was up at the bridge and I noticed there were people running over the bridge, and I was just looking up at them going, oh my God, they're so lucky. I'd love to be running. And I realized, I was like, that's such a weird thought, because I'm actually, supposed to be loving rowing here, and I'm just looking enviously at these runners. So I think that kind of summed it up. My heart wasn't in it, and I didn't love it. And, it's very hard to dedicate that much of yourself to something that you're not really loving.
How did you break the news to Sinead then, that you were going to give up rowing? Or did she kind of know anyway?
She knew all along. In fact, she was probably part of the reason that I made the final call, because, I would be talking to her a lot, and I was saying, oh, this is really tough going. I mean, it was tough going because I was still working. I moved to the Cork office. I was literally getting up every morning, training for 2 or 3 hours, getting to work, working late to make up the time, going home, going to bed, getting up, repeating the same. It was actually such a horrible schedule. I don't think I'd ever do it again. I had zero time for anything, any sort of social activity, like not even time to meet someone for a coffee. It was a really, really literally rowing and working, and that was it, because all weekend as well would be rowing. And then I'd drive up to Dublin after the Sunday session. We usually got a half day and a Sunday, and I remember often having to pull over to the side of the road in the way those little the laybys in the dual carriageway just for a sleep, because I was so exhausted. And I was like, this is not safe, so I actually then started getting the bus to Dublin, because I realized that I shouldn't be driving. It was a very, very, very intense period of training and working, and I mean, yeah, I just wasn't enjoying it. To do that and to give up absolutely everything else in your life, you'd want to really love the sport, and it was just something I was doing. I wasn't loving it. So, I mean, it's very rare in my life that I've, quit, but I think on that occasion, I'm really glad I made the decision that, it was time to quit and just go. I moved back up to Dublin, and I cheered Sinead on from a distance, and obviously was absolutely delighted when she made herself and Claire Lamb qualified for Rio and became I think they finished 6th in Rio, and that was the best performance by an Irish female crew in rowing history in Ireland. So, it was phenomenal. And obviously was the start of, between themselves and the Donovans and Sanita, they were the 3 crews that made it to Rio at the time. And I think, they've obviously left a really good legacy. And in fact, sure, Paul is still rowing and Sanita as well. So, I think I really still enjoy watching them and watching their success, but I'm
glad
definitely
to be on the other side of
definitely
it.
Don't miss it. Yeah.
You much prefer running, so much
Definitely.
so that you went into ultra running and have had so much success with it. I mean, I couldn't list off what's on your CV because I'd be 20 minutes probably listing out all your results, but I'm just going to look at 2022, for example, and mention the 2 big ones, which is 3rd at the 100-kilometer World Championships. You also got a gold in the 50k European Championships. But what was quite interesting was that you took a national 100k record and a 50-mile record at the World Championships for Ireland.
That's right, yeah. And actually my 100k time was also a world record for the over 40 category, which I don't like admitting, but
you don't look over
the world
40,
record
so
kind
right.
of okay.
But that's so well, like, and I said it to you before we started, just how, like, when I was looking at some of your stats and stuff, like, it's 10 years since London, and how far you've come from 2012 to 2022 was just incredible. So what was it in between? Like, where did this decision come from to progress into long distance running? Now, I know you've had lots of success at marathon and half marathon distances and the shorter distances as well in between, but why ultra running?
So, I have to say it did resist ultra running for a while. I must say it was never an area that I was that interested in. I kind of looked at people that were ultra runners and thought, oh my God, they're crazy. Like, why would you want to run 100k? That's just ridiculous. And, I never thought I would be that person. I sometimes think of myself as the reluctant ultra runner, but, it's something now I probably have to accept given the results I've had. When I came back from London, one of the guys that was in the training group that I was in Dublin said to me, well, that's interesting, because I always knew you had the engine to be an ultra runner. Now I know you have the mental capacity to be an ultra runner, because he could see, I was clearly hurting for a lot of London and I was never going to give up. And it was never even entered my head that I was going to step off and not complete that course. So I think, the 2 things that you need to be a good ultra runner, you need to have that mental, the ability to endure, the ability to, I think, personally, I think one of the key things is to be able to just shut out the negative voice in your head and just focus on the moment, the present that you're in, and just realize that, you need to keep going. And secondly, then just the endurance side of it. Now, if you look at my own PBs, like my 5k PB would not be anything outrageously good. As I increase the distance, my PBs are always like so much more impressive relative to, say, world standards. And I suppose, I did always have that. And look, I probably started doing endurance events at a very young age. Like, it's not, I mean, certainly in my day, it wasn't that common to be a triathlete at the age of 12. So I just have that years and years and years of endurance training, regardless of what the sport was. I have the endurance, and it was actually, I had an opportunity to represent Ireland in the World Championships 50k in 2015. And I think, if you ever get the opportunity to represent your country, personally speaking, it's always such a huge honor for me. So I will definitely take the opportunity. Now, I was training for a marathon at the time, and I thought, but I'm only training for marathon distance. Like, how am I going to cope with 50k? And my coach at the time, Terry McConnon, just said, look, it's not that you will be fine. He obviously had the faith in my ability, my endurance ability, and he said, look, just go out there and run it, and do your best. And I went and ran it and finished 4th, and I really enjoyed it. It's very different to the marathon, actually, surprisingly, because in one hand it's only another 8k, which seems very little, but actually it's very different distance in terms of strategy and just your mindset during it, and where the halfway point comes is like later, obviously, but it does matter, because you're kind of I think my whole mindset is different when I'm running a 50k to a marathon. But anyway, that went really well, and I thought, oh well, maybe 50k is okay. It's not that long, so it's
So we'll just double
crazy.
it. We'll just double
Yeah,
it.
so it took me quite a while. It took me another. I ran my first 100k in 2021, so it took me another 6 years to double it. But I eventually got there. It was a gradual increase. I ran Comrades in 2019. It's the ultra marathon in South Africa, and it's one of the, I guess it's one of the most prestigious ones, and I absolutely loved that experience. Like, I just really loved it, and I think that was probably for me a bit of a turning point in the world of ultra running, where I thought, actually, I do really enjoy this. I'm not doing it. I don't think it's as crazy anymore, and it's not. I actually think I'm suited to it. So let's just go with it and see where it brings me. And yeah, it has definitely renewed my love for running, and given me a whole new world of different kind of goals and aspirations, which is actually, pretty good at this stage of my running career.
You mentioned there that there's not that much of a step up from a marathon to a 50k. It's like just under 8k, but there's a massive jump. I mean, there's a double jump to 100k. So how does your preparation change for a 50k versus 100k, or does it? Is it still the same process?
By and large, the same process. Yeah. Like, I mean, at the end of the day, I'm certainly not going to go out and run, I don't know, like, what would you say, like 30k every day? Like, I'm just not going to do that. And I mean, I'm sure my body would break down anyway. Like, I suppose for me, it's kind of a bit of a feeling my way along. I don't know what the perfect 100k training program is. I do know that, like, what I tried last year and the previous year, it was kind of like a trial and error, trying to particularly, I think, my training program is a little bit unique at the moment as well, because because I work full time, and sometimes, I would have to work quite late in the evening. So I try to pack a lot of my training into the weekends, which I think in a way really works for ultra running, because, trying to, getting to solid quality long runs back to back the weekend is good, because, well, you're getting, you're kind of straining the body a little bit in a similar fashion to what you would be in an ultra run, but also it just so happens that I can do a lot of my training at the weekend, and it's effective.
So when you say long quality distance running or long runs at the weekend, what distance are you talking about?
Depends on the stage of the training cycle. But say coming up close to a big championship race, I would possibly do, maybe I could do 18 miles on a Saturday, 22 miles on a Sunday, which, doesn't seem that long. If you're training for a marathon, people say, oh, I run 22, 24 miles on a Sunday, but you don't necessarily run like a 20 or an 18 or 20 miles on a Saturday. And actually some weekends will be more than that. Like I could do up to, I mean, yeah, actually probably 40 to 45 miles would probably be the most I would do in the combined 2 days. But that's, that's quite a big amount of mileage in a 2-day period. And within that, I'd have like some, not necessarily speed work, but some tempo work in it. I don't do time on feet. Some people do, and it works really well for them. And it depends what you're doing in the rest of your week. But for me, I try to include some quality in those long runs, so that, it's kind of more akin to like the race itself. Say, for example, I might do like a 2 mile on, a mile off, or a mile on, a mile off. I will also adapt it to how I'm feeling. Like, if I feel I'm wrecked, on the Sunday, I won't force myself to do that, because now I'm much smarter about my, my reaction, my body, my injuries. But if I'm feeling good, and, I'm feeling that I'm up to it that day, I'll do I might do run easy 10 miles, and then the second 10 miles would be mile on, mile off, or 2 miles on, 1 mile off. And that actually is quite fun for me as well, because it breaks it up and it makes it a bit more interesting and less, mundane, just going out there running, because I do a lot of my training on my own here in Hong Kong. So that it just makes it easier for me as well. So yeah, I wouldn't just go out and run, like, maybe, although some days, like if I'm feeling really tired and I feel like I need to get like a good run in, but I don't want to do too much or go overboard, I might just run for 3 hours, and just whatever mileage I get in that time, then that's fine.
and I'm not sure if this question is even relevant to training, or maybe it's more relevant to racing, but when you're doing 100k, well, I suppose it's more relevant to racing. When you're doing it like a 50k or 100k race, what are you thinking about when you're running?
Yeah, the first 100k I did, I really struggled at the start. I was like, oh my God. Like, so I knew, I was like, roughly speaking, I wanted my target time for it was probably like somewhere between 7.5 and 8 hours. I was like, what am I going to think about for 8 hours? That's like a full day's work where, you're in the office, you're having coffee, you're going to meetings, you're having your lunch, you're back, you're working. I was like, what am I going to think about for all that time? And I just couldn't. It was actually quite daunting for me. I wasn't worried about how am I going to run for 8 hours. Interestingly, I was more worried about what am I going to think about for 8 hours. So I just broke it up. I mean, as anyone would probably tell you, it was obviously the simple answer, but not one that immediately came to me. I broke it up into smaller segments. Like the first hour, I was like, well, this hour can be like my warm up. I'll pretend to be warming up for an hour. And then the next hour, I was thinking my parents were coming to support my sister. And I was like, oh, I wonder, will they be there by that time? And, just things like really, really random things. But I was just like, trying to cut it into hours or 2 hour segments so that I didn't think about the full 8 hours. I thought about the current hour, the next hour. I think that's really the only way you can get through it. And actually, interestingly, it was in Mondello Park that I did it. It was the Anglo-Celtic Plate, so there was an entire Irish team. And I ended up running with one of the Irish guys quite close to the end. And his coach, it was a 1.8k lap, so it was crazily short. And I think we 57 laps or something. It was like pretty mind-boggling in itself, the laps. But his coach would say a couple of lines of a song to him at the start of, say, when it came to the last 10 laps, so that he would just think about the song throughout the lap. And I started thinking about the song as well, because I had heard it, and once you hear something, you can't unhear it. And the first few laps, I was like, oh, this is actually quite an interesting idea. This is quite good. And then I was like, oh my God, I just do not want to hear any more songs, because your head is just like
it wasn't Baby Shark by any chance, was it?
No.
Yeah, so you've run around Mondello, and I've cycled around it. I did the 24-hour Mondello Park 24-hour race with Cycling Ireland's Women's Commission last year. Oh, so much fun. Like,
did they open the full circuit
whole
for
pack,
you?
3.8k, I think it was. Yeah, so it was good.
That's a lot of laps in 24 hours.
We were a team of 8, so I think we did. We went out and cycled 3 laps in our half an hour. At least I was cycling 3 laps in. We'd half an hour stint each to do. And
brilliant. Okay, yeah,
it was really
amazing.
Really good. But I couldn't imagine running around the track for 24 hours. Like, I see Ray O'Connor from Run Ireland does an awful lot of the long distance running. And speaking of Run Ireland, you wouldn't be convinced to come to Connemara in August of this year to do the Connemara 100 mile. Would that be something on your radar, or what is on your radar for 2023?
Well, that's a nice little thought to put in my head. Yeah, exactly. My mother will be shouting, yes, take it, come. Yeah. So for 2023, I'm still a little uncertain on the start of the year, but I know Comrades in June is going to be my main target for the year. I missed out on Comrades last year because it clashed with the World Championships 100k. It was on the following day, which I was devastated about, because I do love the race, and I think my heart was telling me run Comrades, and my head was saying no, run the World Championships, because it's an Irish fest. And at the time when I was making the decision, it was back in February of 2022, and I thought there was a chance it'd be an Irish women's team as well, and I really was keen to be part of that. And then once I'd made the decision to run that, unfortunately there wasn't a team, but I was like still focused on, dead set. I was doing the World Championships, but I was disappointed to miss out on Comrades. So that's probably my target for this year. So it's a point-to-point race, and it changes direction every second year. So it goes from, like, they call it the up run because it's more net positive, incline on one direction, and then the other direction they call it the down run because it's net down, even though there's still plenty hills. But this year is down. So the year I had run it was up, and now it's down. So I'd be interested to try it the other way around, and I think, well, let's hope it suits me. So that's June. And then also the World Championship 50k is due to take place this year. It was originally scheduled for June as well in South Africa, but that's been cancelled now. So they'll probably, I hope they'll reschedule it somewhere. But there hasn't been a definitive date or venue set for that yet. So when that comes up, I'll definitely be running that, and hopefully we'll have an Irish female team in that as well. So Sorcha Loughnane is absolutely shooting the lights out on the 50k scene as well. So be great if we can, get a team and get competitive on that distance.
When you look back now at the aftermath of London and the disappointment, and you mentioned earlier, you said that when you don't perform well, it angers you. When you look back now at London and you look at that trajectory that you've had and those incredible results and the Irish records that you have, the world and European medals that you have, could you ever have imagined when you were so disappointed and devastated with London that you'd be at the level that you're at now?
No, I would never have predicted this would happen. I must say, if at best I would have thought I would continue marathon running and kind of be obviously improve, but even at marathon running, I always knew I was never going to be winning marathons or really competitive at that level on a world stage. So I think, it's been a journey for sure, a very interesting one. It's taken me a while to get here, but I'm really happy that I'm here, and I'm excited that I'm now finally an ultra runner.
And what do you think it is that you have that is giving you the success at the long distance stuff, or in running in general, in sport in general? What is it?
Well, as I said, I love it. So I think that's really important. I do genuinely love it. I'm not saying that I wake up every morning and go, I can't wait to get up early and go running. There are, of course, days when I don't want to get out of bed. But I do overall, I love the sport. I love running. I love the training. And I absolutely love competing. And I do have a really steely determination in me. And I don't even know exactly why or where it came from. But I definitely have an inner drive that I want to compete and I want to do well, and I think that is my biggest motivator, because to me, while I do love it, I do train to race, and I do love racing. So I'm fortunate that I'm still able to do that and be competitive at this stage.
If you were to look back at your results in all of your sporting endeavors, what's the one you're most proud of?
I still think it's qualifying for the Olympics in Rotterdam in 2012, just because that was basically achieving a lifelong dream. And it was something that I never probably fully believed that I would get, but, it was really, really special to get that. And, to be selected for the Olympic Games. I think very close second and third would be the bronze medal in the World Championships this year, and my bronze medal in Comrades in 2019, and of course my gold medal in the Europeans. But for some reason, because the Worlds were before the Europeans, I think that was just a really special moment for me, because it was kind of like I had, as you said, it had been almost like a 10-year lull, not quite a lull, of course, I had mediocre success here and there, but that was my first major comeback and medal on a world level, and that was really, really a very special moment for me as well.
And then, considering all of the locations that you've raced, what's your favorite race venue or race location?
Probably California. I love California myself. My husband and I just love going there. But I raced in the Lake Sonoma 50-mile race in 2022 as well, actually, and it was an absolutely stunning race, stunning venue, stunning course. And that was probably my favorite venue, I guess.
We have lots of listeners who are triathletes. I know you don't like cycling, but I have seen you do recovery spins in Mallorca, so you do actually still get on your bicycle. Do you think in the future will a triathlon ever be on your radar?
I'd absolutely love to do an Ironman. I just don't know how. The training for it kind of is a bit daunting, but I'd love to do an Ironman, and I'd love to do one that would qualify me for Kona. I think it would be amazing. I think that would be the pinnacle, to be able to race at Kona.
I was not expecting that answer. I thought you were going to say, no way, not a hope. And are you still swimming?
I am actually, I'm in a swim group here in Hong Kong. It's an outdoor pool, so the pool is closed for January because it's too cold. It's only an average of about 20 degrees, so very cold.
Galway Bay this morning is 7 degrees.
Crazy. I know I was home at Christmas and people were swimming in the sea without wetsuits. I was like, oh my God, you're crazy. I don't know how they were doing it. Oh, I've so much admiration. I really do. Just looking at people made me cold. But you're obviously you're doing the open water sea swims without wetsuits,
During
Joanne.
COVID, yeah, during COVID, like I only live 1.5 kilometers away from the sea, and I was obviously when we were training for triathlon, we were putting on wetsuits, you'd swim away. But during COVID, and then obviously I started talking too much. So my triathlon career kind of went on the shelf, and I've been doing a bit more biking and lots of talking. But during COVID, because we couldn't go anywhere, there was very little work. It was like this whole lifestyle change. We used to go down to the sea. I think it was the June bank holiday weekend. Lots of the girls in the tri club were getting in, and of 2020. And I was like, oh, really, I should just get in. Like, what's my excuse? What is my excuse?
Yeah.
So I ended up just getting in my skins in June, and I didn't stop getting in until I think it was March 2021. So I did a whole season, a winter season of swimming and skins and everything. Some of it now was only dipping for 2 minutes or 3 minutes, but some of it was actually staying in the water for 15, 20 minutes. And then continued throughout the summer of 2021. And then the world started turning again, and I started talking again, and my winter, my sea swimming kind of dropped off. But I'm very proud of myself now, because I did start getting back into the sea just like once a week or once every couple of weeks when I could, because life is busy again now. You don't have the flexibility to go down, and a 10-minute dip. Yeah, but a 10-minute dip used to take 1.5 hours or 2 hours, because you just be talking and having coffee sitting outside. You've nothing to do. So there was that whole piece around the social aspect of it, no more than going to the running club, and so important as well. But I'm so proud of myself. And even the chairperson of Galway Tri Club, Francis Yates, commented on this when he saw my name. I signed up for the swim block for Galway Tri Club, swim pool sessions for the next 6 to 8 weeks. With the tri club, and it was 2017 or 2018 since I've last done that. So there's definitely a pull of something. I definitely feel the ocean. I passed it today and it was wild. I'm hoping to get in today for a couple of minutes, but there's definitely a bit of a pull back to the sea. I'd like to do a few bits. It's hard when you're traveling. It's hard when you're talking, and but
I know, but it's good to make time.
Yeah, and sometimes just hopping on the turbo for half an hour, 40 minutes is as much as you can get done in a day.
And at least it's something.
Yeah, absolutely. So coming back to you, Caitriona, you mentioned that the Olympics was a lifelong dream, but at what age did the Olympics become the dream? Was it always on your radar?
It was always on my radar, yes. I think purely because of watching it on TV and seeing, following the Irish team from all the sports, not necessarily running, but all the sports. And then I did an Olympic youth camp with the Triathlon Association, when I was quite a young teenager, I think probably maybe 14 or 15. And, so there was always kind of like the Olympics was always thereabouts in the background. And I don't know why, but it was definitely a very long dream, from a young teenager, I guess.
So the Olympic dream, watching other people in sport, who from a sporting perspective would have been a big inspiration or a big influence in your life?
I think Sonia O'Sullivan, which is probably a very common answer you get. But like she was phenomenal, both in, not just the Olympics, but in all her international competitions. And I think, we definitely would have loved supporting her at home. So I think she's probably the standout inspiration for me, certainly, as a younger athlete. And then, as I got older, I think my older sister Sinead as well was a huge inspiration, because I was 21 when she won the World Championships. So, I hadn't really gone into much of my running kind of success at that stage. So, having seen her achieve at such a high level, on a world stage was really inspirational to me as well.
We will have lots of listeners who are athletes who've done Ironman. We'll have lots of listeners who are runners who've maybe done a marathon and are maybe tempted or inspired by this conversation and by your results to maybe try an ultra or to step up to 100k. What would you say would be the best piece of advice that you could give somebody who's looking to step up in distance to 50 or 100k?
Well, I'd say definitely do it. You'd never know how much you're going to enjoy it unless you try. So definitely do it. You probably won't regret it. But um, I would say choose a race or a venue that inspires you so that, you are really willing to do the training, before it, and it's something that excites you so that, you're on the days, as I said, when you don't necessarily feel like training, you will want to train because you have that goal in mind. So yeah, just give it a go. Don't overdo it. Just because you're doing a long distance race doesn't mean you have to do a huge amount of weekly training in your mileage. So stick to that golden rule of only additional 10% per week and stay healthy on the way.
And my final question for you then is, what are you most looking forward to for the year ahead? Not necessarily even in sport. Like, what are you most looking forward to for the next 12 months or so?
In general, I think just the ability to travel again. And living in Hong Kong, we've been restricted. We've had to hotel quarantine anytime we've left Hong Kong. When we return here, it ranged from 3 weeks to a week, and I've done all sorts of quarantines. So being able to travel quarantine free and see more of the region and have weekends away and maybe even race in the region here as well, that's probably what I'm looking forward to most, and just having that freedom again to travel and explore.
And of course your camping trip this weekend.
Oh yeah, the hike.
The hike. You're not camping.
And the hike home.
The hike only. Well, Caitriona, thank you so much for joining me on the show. It's been a pleasure chatting with you. The last time we met was when I was hosting the Fair Game podcast with Emily Glenn. Yourself and Aileen Flynn were on the show, and how far we've all come since then has been magnificent. So thank you so much, and I wish you the very best of luck for the future ahead.
Thanks so much, Joanne, and same to you. Wishing you continued success.
Thanks for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this episode. You can get in touch with any feedback or guest suggestions by emailing me on trytalkingsport@gmail.com. If you would like to hear more great episodes of the podcast, be sure to check them out on our website, www.trytalkingsport.com, or wherever you get your podcasts, with lots of episodes of the show now available. There's a huge back catalogue of inspiration and motivation to choose from. You can follow all of our activities and podcasts on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn and Instagram. And if you have any feedback or guest suggestions, please email me on trytalkingsport@gmail.com. I'd love to hear from you. Until next time, thanks for listening, stay safe, keep smiling, and remember to look for fun and adventure in every day.